Hey Thinksters, and welcome to this video where I want to show you real quick how to create a function in Python in a single line of code. So say you have a simple function like this one. I will just copy and paste the function now to make it quicker. So you have a function called f, it takes one argument x, and you return the value of the expression x times 3. So if it is an integer, then you will multiply the integer with 3, or a float. If it is a string, then you will concatenate the string 3 times, and then you have an exclamation mark in the end, okay? And you convert the whole thing to a string. So this is like a dummy function, and so for example, when you run f of 1, then it will result in 3 exclamation mark. If you run f, the function of Python, of the string Python, then it will concatenate the string 3 times. So we have Python, 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 and then you have exclamation mark. So this is just a random function, and the question is, how can we write this function in a single line of code? And I have compiled 3 ways of doing it, and the third way is just a fun way of doing it, but you will learn something, I think, very valuable and security relevant out of it. Okay, so let's start with the first way, which is like the standard way of doing it. You just write the function in one line of code. If you have a function body consisting only of a single line, then you can for sure just write it in a single line. It's not as Pythonic, I would say. So the normal way is to write it like this, and people will complain sometimes if you just write it in a single line, but it's also perfectly valid, and I've seen it in many practical code bases from very strong coders. So you can use this single line function definition. Actually, it doesn't harm readability by any margin, I would say, in my opinion. So you can just write it like this. So you have the function definition, you use the def keyword, the function name, the variable, then you have the colon, then you have the return keyword, and then you have the return expression. So this is a perfect valid way of writing a function in a single line of code, and you can do it. And if you run it, so let's run this. You see that all the 3 function definitions we will look at result in exactly the same output, so they are semantically equivalent. Okay, then the second definition, this is the most Pythonic way, I would say. It's also shorter, more concise, and this is like customly defined for these types of problems. Yeah, this is a lambda function. So you can create a variable named f2, for example. You can have any variable name here, and this will be the function name. This will play the function name, the role of the function name in the previous example. Okay, so instead of having the keyword def and then the function name, we simply create a name of a variable, and the variable now just points to an object. Now we need to create the object, and we create the object using the lambda keyword, and the lambda keyword creates a new function object. So in Python, everything is an object, even functions are objects. So we have a name, we have a function object in memory, and the name refers to this function object, and then we can just use the name as any other function. Okay, so you see it here. We use f2, and then we have this parenthesis notation to define the arguments of the function, and this results in exactly the same output as before. Okay, so it's just used exactly the same as your normal function definition, but you create it in a different way. You first create a name, and then you create a function object. And the function object, so first it starts with the lambda definition, so that Python knows, okay, now a lambda definition follows, and then the next part is the argument. So this can be one argument. You can have many arguments, comma separated, but in our case we don't need this. So we have one argument, we call the argument x, and now we can use our argument in the return value to create a function return value, to define the function return value. So there's no need to use the return keyword here, because the lambda function, it's just by definition everything after the colon is the return value. Okay, so the lambda function, it must have a return value. As any function, I mean, even if you don't specify the return value in your normal function definition, then it will just return none. So it will return the value none. So it will return something. And in your lambda function definition, you also need to give the return value, and if you don't want to return anything, then you should just return explicitly none. But this doesn't make sense, of course. Good. So you can return then exactly the same thing here. We have the string conversion on the result of the operation x times 3, and then we have list string concatenation by concatenating the result with the exclamation mark. So we have exactly the same behavior. Okay, and now the third method I'm most excited about because it's so useless, it's so non-Pythonic, you should never use it in practice, but this is a way many hackers would actually hide their malicious scripts in a single line of code. So you should be aware of this. So even a single line of Python can do a lot of harm, and it may seem harmless, but it can like you can have a 1,000 line virus in a single line of code. So therefore you should be really careful even executing small scripts from strangers. So this one uses just a string. So now we have f3, which is just a string. And this string can be defined anywhere. I mean, it can be also an import statement or so, and then it just imports a library or so, yeah. But it can be a string in a file on a computer or anything, yeah. So this is just one string definition, and this string contains all the code. And now we simply use the exec function, and we pass a string into the exec function, and then the function will run the code as if this string would be the code. Okay, so it just looks into the content and it analyzes the content. It treats the string content as it would treat a content in a file. Okay, so here we have the function definition f of x. Then we have the colon and the new line character, and then even 4 empty spaces to account, like this is actually this definition here. This we defined in a string by using the explicit new line character instead of the implicit new line in your file. Okay, so this, like here we define our return value, and now we have defined the function f within our code, and then we can even do some stuff like concatenate it to other strings where we call the function f that we have just defined here. So this is just a simple string concatenation operation. So we have a new line character and we have the print function, and we use the function f, and we can do anything here actually in our code. So it's perfectly valid to do anything to do anything in your code. So as you see, a simple string can contain like even very huge, very massive code snippets and code scripts that when executed can have a serious impact on your computer. So this way you can basically transform any algorithm, any very complicated algorithms into a single line of code, compress it in a single line of code by using the exec statement. Okay, so therefore it's very malicious. It can be really dangerous if you just copy paste a piece of code from somewhere on the internet and run it on your computer, and even if the code snippet seems to be small, you don't know actually. I mean, he could even hide the string. So by doing some simple string operations like shifting the character value by 1, you cannot even see what the string is doing, and then you can, like, before calling the exec, it can then programmatically shift all characters in the string by 1 position in the Unicode alphabet or so, and then you cannot even see what the code does. You cannot even look at the code and see what it does, because the code just does something. You don't understand what. It defines some functions and stuff, but you cannot read it because it is shifted by one position in the Unicode alphabet, and therefore if you then programmatically shift it back, it will be a valid code, it will execute the code, but you as a coder, you cannot even see it. So you should not copy and paste code that you don't understand from the web. In general, this is a general rule. I know it's difficult and hard, and oftentimes you want to just take code, and in many cases, if you take code from Stack Overflow of a highly rated answer, then you won't have a problem with this probably, but it's very dangerous. You should be aware of this danger. So even a single line of code can be very malicious, can be dangerous by means of the exec function. Okay, thanks for listening to this video, and see you in the next video. Bye.